The boy raises a rope and approaches the wild wolf. Then he quickly ties its muzzle shut. He wraps the rope around several times and secures it with a firm knot. But he doesn't hurt the wolf. Instead, he carefully cleans its wounds. Then he settles the wolf inside a cave. To keep a close eye on its condition, the boy spends the night beside it. However, when Keda wakes up the next morning, he discovers the wolf has freed itself from the rope. It even bares its teeth at him. The boy is so frightened that he doesn't dare move. But if the wolf truly wanted to harm him, he would have been dead during the night. Thinking of this, the boy gathers his courage again. With trembling hands, he brings water to the wolf's mouth. Seeing no resistance, the wolf leans forward and drinks deeply. Only then does Keda relax a little. He never imagines that the wolf he saves on a whim will become an important figure in human history. A few days earlier, Keda is injured in an accident. Forced to separate from his tribe, he can only wander the wilderness alone. With no food at all, he survives by eating insects. But that's nowhere near enough, especially for a wounded wolf that needs nutrition to heal. So Keda, who has never killed before, hardens his heart and hunts a rabbit for the wolf. But just as he eagerly prepares to start a fire and roast it, the wolf's wild instincts suddenly surface. It tries to snatch the food from Keda's hands. Seeing that the beast hasn't changed, Keda tears off a large chunk of raw meat with his teeth. It's his way of asserting dominance, showing that he is the owner of this prey. Keda knows that if he backs down, he could become the wolf's next meal. Fortunately, his fire-making finally works. The rising flames further reinforce his position. Keda sits by the fire and eats the roasted meat. The wolf beside him loses its earlier aggression. From time to time, it lets out soft whimpers. Its eyes are filled with longing for the food. After Keda finishes eating and sees the wolf has completely submitted, he finally tosses over a piece of meat. This isn't charity. It's the first rule Keda sets for their relationship. He provides food and shelter, and the wolf must follow his rules. Keda thinks the wolf has accepted him. That night, he tries to get closer, but the wolf remains wary. It bares its fangs, acting on pure instinct to protect itself. The ice of distrust has begun to crack, but it still needs time to fully melt. In the dead of night, the wolf howls toward the distance. It's a call from deep within its bloodline. It misses its pack. Listening to the lonely howl, Keda also begins to miss his tribe. At this moment, a boy and a wolf, two lonely souls abandoned by their own kind, slowly begin to connect. Before long, Keda's injuries gradually heal. After getting everything ready, he prepares to return to his tribal homeland. He even says goodbye to the wolf. Before leaving, he tries to take back his scarf, but the wolf stubbornly refuses to let go, clamping its teeth onto the fabric. Keda struggles hard before finally pulling it free. The wolf stops resisting. It simply lies on the ground, looking at Keda with pitiful eyes, filled with dependence and reluctance to part. It doesn't understand the meaning of human farewells. It only knows that the scarf carries Keda's scent, the scent of food and warmth. Keda wants the wolf to return to its own pack, but the wolf refuses to move an inch. Left with no choice, Keda sets off alone. Yet before he gets very far, the wolf quietly follows him, always keeping a careful distance. In this brutal prehistoric world, where only the strong survive, the clever wolf knows that, wounded as it is, survival is difficult. So instinctively, it chooses to stay near Keda. No matter how many times Keda turns around to scold and drive it away, the wolf seems to have already chosen him. It simply refuses to leave. Just as Keda runs out of ideas, the wolf suddenly dashes ahead of him. Confused, Keda follows. Soon he notices a herd of wild boars hidden at the foot of the hill. Before he can react, the wolf charges downhill and drives the prey forward. It's a rare hunting opportunity in desperate times. But Keda lacks experience and misses the chance. The boars escape in panic. Only after Keda offers his last bit of food does the wolf finally approach, reluctantly accepting the meal. From then on, Keda whistles every time he feeds it. To his surprise, after repeated practice, the wolf begins to come to him whenever it hears the whistle. So Keda gives it a name, Alpha. With Alpha by his side, Keda no longer worries about food. Although his hunting skills are still lacking, he knows how to make fire. And Alpha is a naturally gifted hunter. One boy and one wolf, perfectly complementing each other. Together, they enjoy hot meals every day. Whenever they share roasted meat at night, Alpha's eyes seem to carry a hint of disdain for Keda's appetite. But when they sleep, and the campfire dies down as the cold creeps in, Alpha willingly curls up beside Keda, using its warm fur to keep him warm. In the morning, it wakes Keda with a wet tongue, providing the most primitive alarm clock imaginable. The fangs and suspicion that once stood between them have completely vanished. As they grow closer, Keda becomes less cautious. One day while bathing, he simply tosses Alpha into the river. Not only does Alpha not resist, it happily splashes around with him. And the first thing it does after reaching shore is bring back a fresh fish in its mouth, a heartfelt gift after their shared swim. On this vast wilderness, they have already become each other's only support. As winter arrives earlier than expected, snow blankets the entire land. By now, Keda and Alpha work together flawlessly. The wild boars that once escaped them can now be taken down with ease. It seems that the boy and the wolf will spend the winter together in harmony. But before the smoke from that night's roasted meat has fully faded, a starving wolf follows the scent and appears. Keda immediately grabs a wooden club and prepares himself. But when he looks closer, he sees an entire pack behind it. Before Keda can process what's happening, Alpha walks forward on its own. It affectionately rubs against the lead wolf's neck. There is no hostility between them. The lead wolf turns out to be Alpha's long-lost mate, and the pack has come searching for Alpha. Alpha looks back at Keda. Its eyes are filled with complex emotions, reluctance to leave, and a longing to return to its pack. Keda instantly understands. Though his heart is shaken, he knows he must let Alpha go. After losing his closest companion, Keda is overwhelmed with mixed emotions. But he knows Alpha belongs with the pack. He can't selfishly keep it by his side forever. Without Alpha, Keda returns to a lonely life. As the weather grows colder and food becomes scarce, he misses Alpha more than ever. He misses the warmth and the unspoken sense of safety. One day, while traveling, Keda accidentally falls through a frozen lake. He struggles desperately in the icy water. Just as he's about to give up, he vaguely spots the silhouette of a wolf on the ice, following his path from above. Perhaps seeing a glimmer of hope, Keda uses all his strength to swim toward a thinner section of ice. Then he drives his knife through it. But before Keda can pull himself out, the wolf rushes over and bites onto his arm. It literally drags him onto the ice. Soaked from head to toe, Keda shivers uncontrollably. The wolf repeatedly licks his face to comfort him, then presses close, using its thick fur to keep him warm. The wolf that saves him is Alpha. Unable to stop worrying about Keda, Alpha gives up the stable life of the pack and follows him all the way. That's why it arrives the moment he falls into the lake. With Alpha's care, Keda slowly regains his strength. Though he narrowly survives, his body remains weak. Every step is a struggle, until he spots a blurry figure near a tent in the distance. A spark of hope immediately reignites. He rushes over for help, but as he gets closer, he realizes it's only a frozen corpse. The cruel truth strikes him hard. To make matters worse, the tent is completely empty. There isn't any food. All hope is shattered. Keda's condition rapidly worsens from the cold and hunger. He even begins coughing up blood. Even so, his will to survive remains unbroken. Looking at the equally exhausted Alpha, he knows they must keep moving. Before leaving, he takes a bow and arrows from beside the deceased, silently offering his thanks. Then he and Alpha continue toward the tribe. But not long after setting off, a fierce blizzard sweeps in. Even worse, a pack of hyenas begins closing in behind them. With no other choice, Keda and Alpha charge into the storm, beginning a desperate escape. In their panic, they stumble into a cave. Fortunately, the hyenas fail to find them. For the moment, they're safe. Just as Keda starts to relax, Alpha suddenly bares its teeth and growls toward the darkness inside the cave. Its instincts sense an even greater danger. Moments later, a massive male lion bursts out. Without hesitation, Alpha charges forward. Though facing a predator far larger than itself, it fights bravely to protect Keda. But the difference in strength is overwhelming. Gradually, Alpha begins to lose ground. At the critical moment, Keda overcomes his fear. He raises his bow, takes aim at the lion, and releases an arrow. The shot hits its target, but Alpha collapses to the ground, barely alive. Keda desperately calls out its name, yet there is no response. Suddenly, the lion's body begins to move. To Keda's shock, Alpha slowly rises from beneath it, dragging its battered body to its feet. Only after confirming that Keda is safe does it finally collapse. Thankfully, Alpha survives. Heartbroken, Keda carefully cleans its wounds. After enduring so many life and death trials together, he already considers Alpha family. All he wants now is for Alpha to pull through. But as the temperature continues to fall, Alpha's injuries worsen. They must return to the tribe as quickly as possible. It's their only chance. After traveling for who knows how long, they finally discover a tribal marker carved into a rock. It means they're heading in the right direction. But the blizzard grows more violent, and Alpha's condition rapidly deteriorates. Days of travel have drained every ounce of strength. Eventually, Alpha collapses. Keda kneels beside it, offering gentle encouragement. Even though Alpha can no longer move, Keda never considers leaving it behind. Instead, he firmly lifts his companion into his arms. Because, in his heart, Alpha is no longer just a wild animal. It's his brother. But before long, Keda himself reaches his limit. He collapses into the snow and falls asleep. In his dream, he sees his parents waiting for him to come home. A powerful determination suddenly awakens inside him. Driven by that belief, he struggles back to his feet, stubbornly lifting Alpha once more, and continuing the journey home. Fueled by sheer willpower, they finally return to the long-lost tribe. Hope is right in front of them, but Alpha is already on the verge of death. When Keda stumbles into the camp carrying the wolf, every member of the tribe is stunned. Even the tribal chief never imagines that his son, who has no wilderness survival experience, could create such a miracle. Not only does he return home alive, he also brings back a living wild wolf. Before losing consciousness, Keita uses his final strength to point at Alpha. It's his last wish, begging his father to save it. When Keita wakes up again, he is lying inside a warm tent. The first thing he does is look for Alpha. Fortunately, the tribal healer manages to save its life. But before Keita can fully relax, the healer notices something unusual in Alpha's abdomen. Only then does Keita realize the truth. The companion who has shared life and death with him is actually a female wolf, and she was already pregnant when she left the pack. He can hardly believe it. Alpha fights a lion while carrying pups, and travels hundreds of kilometers by his side. At that moment, Keita finally understands the depth of her devotion. This bond forged through life and death moves him deeply. As time passes, both Keita and Alpha make a full recovery. Alpha's pups grow up healthy within the tribe. Together with Keita, they help protect the tribe's homeland. From that day forward, whenever the tribe goes hunting, wolves run beside them. They become the most powerful, legendary tribe of prehistoric times. This is the birth of the world's first dogs. They write loyalty into their genes and stand beside humanity through the ages.